Yo, what's good with y'all? In today's video, I'm about to show you guys how to make a sword pairing system. This is using my first video I originally made on how to make a basic sword combat system. I'm gonna show you guys how to make a parry system where it's kind of like a blocking system where you right click the mouse, and then you play like a blocking animation, and if someone tries to, hit you while you're blocking, then of course it'll like play like a parried animation, like you'll have parried and stuff like that. But of course it only lasts for like, I think it's like a second, maybe close to 2 seconds and stuff, but you guys can change it to whatever you want and stuff. But let's get straight into it. So first things first, the animations I use like for the sword and stuff, like for the sword slashes and the sword blocking and stuff, there are six animations, which means if you want to use this script or both of the scripts and you're using R15, you need to find your own animations. You need to find R15 animations. If you're using R6, then you're good to go. But anyway, let's get straight into it. Okay, first things first. There's not really a point of us having a rig here because I changed the script to where it will only work against players and stuff, like actual people in the player service. So we can't really test it on NPC. You would have to test it by pressing test up here and then creating a server with two kind of fake players, right? But anyway, so in the sound service I have three sword sounds. Simply go to toolbox, go to audio, type in sword parry, sword swing, and sword slash or sword stab, and then you'll get your sound effects. When you find all your sound effects, put them in sound service and name them accordingly. Your parry sound, the sound you make when you're just like just a regular sword slash, and this is the sound that plays when you actually hit a player or just generally hit a character, I should say, right? And then we can get into the actual scripting. First, we're gonna need a sword. So let's go to the toolbox, let's go to models, let's type sword. We're gonna get the classic sword, the one that Roblox made. So click OK, put it in the starter pack, and then you can delete the sword script, delete the mouse icon, and then you can delete all of these sound effects, and then just leave the mesh and everything. And that's all you gotta do for the sword. The sword is ready to go. Now we're going to get into the actual scripting. So first we're going to insert a local script into the classic sword. You guys can name it sword combat local, and then you guys can insert a remote event in replicated storage, and you can name it sword event, and then we are ready to get into the local side of the script. Okay, so we can delete print hello world. First things first, of course, you're going to make a variable for the remote event. So let's do local sword event is equal to game dot replicated storage, wait for child, sword event. Then we're going to get the user input service so that we can block and slash at the same time. So local UIS is equal to game get service user input service, and then we're going to get the local player. So local player is equal to game.players.local player, right? Then we're going to make our variables for the sword. First is the cooldown variable. So local cooldown is equal to false by default. And then local /1, because keep in mind we have 4 animations total. Like kind of like a left slash animation, then a right slash animation, then the animation for blocking, and then animation for when you parry an attack. So /1 is equal to true by default, and /2 is equal to false by default. Right, and we have all our variables set up. Now we can get into the functions. So first we could name this function, we call it slash, I guess, right? Then we can we could press enter, and then we could say if cooldown enter return. This pretty much is the same thing as saying if cooldown is equal to true, then return. Pretty much if the cooldown variable is set to true, which means the attack is currently on cooldown, then it will not play. It won't play in animation, right? And then if it's not on cooldown, we're going to say cooldown is set to true, and then we're going to say if /1, then /1 is equal to false, /2 is equal to true, and then we're going to fire the remote event. So sword event fire server, and we're going to say /1, and then we can just copy and paste this. So select it, Control C, then enter, and then you can say else, enter, and then control V to paste, and then just do the opposite. So true, false, and change this to /2. And boom, we have that function set up. Now for the last part, well, just the last part, we're gonna put a wait. I like to go with 0.82 seconds. You guys can change this time. So I'm gonna say wait 0.82 seconds. You guys can change this. This is the cooldown duration, right? This is how long you'll be on cooldown for before you can attack again. So if you want it to be longer, increase the time. If you don't want any cooldown, wouldn't understand why you would want that, but you could just remove the wait if that's the case. So you could just change the number to whatever you want. And then I'm going to set the cooldown variable back to false because the duration has finished and the player is now able to attack once again. And then I'm going to connect this function. So I'm going to say script.parent.activated, which means they press their left mouse button while the tool is equipped. So connect, and then we're going to say connect it to the /event. And boom, we have that function set up. Now, moving on, we have the last function for the local script, and it is the blocking function. So we're going to say function block, then in parentheses, we're going to put input, then enter, and then I'm going to say uas.input begin, connect block, and then delete that, and then boom, right? Then make sure you type this correctly because it will not autofill. I'm going to say if input.user input type is equal to enum.user input type keyboard, I'm sorry, not keyboard, dot mouse button 2, because remember this is for blocking, so we're using mouse button 2, right? That mouse button 2, and cooldown is equal to false, making sure that we're not on cooldown, and one last and player dot character find first child script.parent.name. And it's very important that you do script.parent.name because by doing this, you're making it so you can just throw the script into any sword. It doesn't even have to be this specific sword. You can put the script in any specific sword and it'll work and stuff. We need to verify that they're pressing the right mouse button, that the player is currently not on cooldown, and that they have the sword in hand, because obviously we wouldn't want to play an animation if they're just right clicking and they don't have the sword equipped. Then we can press enter, and then we can set the cooldown equal to true, right? And then we can fire their mode event. So sword event fire server. This time we're going to say block, and then we're going to wait 0.82, just as I said. Just as I said right here, you guys can change this time to whatever you want. Like, I can understand if like maybe in your game you want the cooldown duration to be longer for like, I don't know, say for like if you want the sword slashing cooldown time to be like 1 second, but you want the blocking duration to be 2 seconds, you could change this, but then at the same time keep in mind if you're changing this, then this also won't work because they're using the same variable. What I would recommend, if you want to use one time here, like say if you have a different time here than you do right here, like these are not the same times, I would recommend having 2 cooldown variables. Like you could say this is /cooldown and then add another variable and call it blocking cooldown in case you wanted to have different time. I would recommend doing it like that and stuff. So if you're interested in that, just let me know in the comments and I'll show you an example. But yeah, and then just like we did before, we're going to set the cooldown variable equal to false because the duration has finished. And then I'm going to connect. Oh, I already connected the function. Well, just like that, we are done with the local side of things. We can go ahead and move on to the server side now. So we can close that script out. We can insert a server script into server script service. And we can go ahead and name this sword script, in parentheses put server, enter. Delete print hello world. We're going to need to make a couple variables first, but majority of them are animations. So first we're going to get their mode event. So local sword event is equal to game.replicated storage wait for child sword event. Then I'm going to get the sound service. So local sound, or no, let's just go local ss is equal to game get service sound service, right? Then I'm going to put a space in between and I'm going to get my 4 animations. So first I'm going to make the /1 animation. So local /1 animation is equal to instance.new animation, then /1 animation.animation ID is equal to quotation marks rbx asset ID : 2 4 slashes Then here's where I would type my ID. Once again, if you're using R6, you're good to go from here. If you're using R15, you need to find your own animations. You don't need to necessarily make your own animations. You just need to find R15 animations. And oh, by the way, if you're wondering the difference between R15 and R6, let me show you the difference. So here's how you know if animations are R15, R6. When you go to the toolbox and you get a model that has animations, right? Look at the rig. If the rig has only a couple parts like this, if it looks just like this, like they only have like left arm, left leg, and stuff like that, this is R6. You can literally go to the humanoid and just view it, and you'll see rig type and it'll say R6. So you could just do that too. But the way I just tell the difference between the two is that R6 does not have a lot of parts. However, if I were to insert a R15 model, you guys will see they have much more parts, which is honestly why I prefer R15. R15 has a lot more parts, and they're mesh parts. Oh, we'll ignore that. But then they have a whole bunch of mesh parts and stuff. This is how you can tell the difference. But yeah, so I'll just delete that. Anyway, back to what I was doing. So here I'm gonna put my ID 14059080189, and then of course we're going to copy and paste this 3 more times. So 1, 2, and 3. Remember, Control C, Control V. Now for /2 animation, make sure you change this right here, and then as well let's update your ID. So the only thing that changes is 4485. Okay, so / wait 448, yeah, 4485. Yeah, I'm really hoping that's 84485. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna hope for the best. If the animation ID is wrong, then I'll just go back and fix it. And then moving on to the second one, we have, I believe we'll go with Parry. Yeah, so we'll call this sword Parry animation. Then paste this over, change the ID, and I'm gonna go with 14442323945. And then for the last one, this is sword parried animation. Understand the difference. This is the animation that plays when you're like blocking, like you're holding the sword to block. This is the animation that plays when you actually parry an attack. Then I'm gonna paste this over, and then for the final animation ID, got 1444, and then 23355. I really need to just put these in my notes, and then I can just copy and paste it. But anyway, now we can get into the functions after we make one last variable. So local players who can damage. Making that a table, so equal to special brackets. Now we get into the functions. We're going to use 3 functions. One function to handle the animations and sounds, another one to handle the damaging, which kind of at the same time also handles some of the animations, and of course their motive in itself. So let's first set up the local functions. A lot of this will not autofill for the first 2 functions, so make sure you pay attention to what it is I'm typing exactly as I'm typing it. So local function, and we'll call this animation handler. And then in parentheses, you're gonna put animation character, right? Then I'm press enter, and then I'm going to set up the animation track. So local animation track is equal to character dot humanoid load animation, and then I'm going to of course play the animation on the next line. So animation track play. Then this function will only be triggered when we're trying to, like, you're swinging your sword around, I should say. So we can do ss dot, we could say sword sound play, and we've set up that function. Moving on to the second function, then I'm going to say local function damage. In parentheses, you're going to put character to damage, right? Because we don't need the character that's trying to attack. We just need the character that we're trying to damage. Character to damage. We're first going to get the player to damage. We're first going to get the player, right, from the character and stuff. And this is what I meant by this won't, like, you can't test this on NPC. Like, this won't work on NPC. You'd have to test, like, the testing up here with fake players, because it won't work with an NPC stuff, because this relies on using a variable that I'm creating inside of the player. So, like, it's being stored inside the player, because in my opinion it's unreliable to store it inside of the character, because it would just, the variable would just be destroyed every time the player dies. So, or the character dies, I guess. So I'm gonna say local player, then I'm gonna say 2 damage, just so I can keep up with who is who and stuff, so I don't confuse it with like the player that's attacking. Is equal to game dot players regular brackets character 2 damage dot name, so we can retrieve the player, and then I'm gonna say if player, oh sorry, wrong thing, if player 2 damage, find first child quotation marked, and I'm gonna say sword status, right? Pretty much this variable should only exist if a player has either tried to attack, they've either tried to hit another player or just generally swing their sword, or if they tried to block. So if this variable just doesn't exist at all, then the players, you can't possibly be blocking. So they're just gonna take damage. Or if just generally their status is set to idle, which means they are currently not blocking. So find first child sword status and player damage dot sword status dot value is set to blocking. So we need to first make sure that the variable is inside of the player, as well as that the value of the variable is set to blocking, because then we're going to play the animation for when they parry the attack. So local animation track is equal to character to damage dot humanoid load animation, and then we're going to put sword parried animation, and then I'm going to play the animation track. So play, and then I'm going to play this sword parry sound effect. So ss.sword parry, play, and then I'm going to put a wait, and then I'm going to wait. The animation lasts for about 2 seconds, so I'm going to put this here. So another thing too, if you want your blocking to not last as long, you could set the animation track to play for a certain time by putting a number right here. You can set the duration right here. So say if you want a player to only be able to block for like the span of like, I don't know, maybe like a second, maybe, rather than 2 seconds, you could put like 1 second here, then change this wait time to 1 second, right? And then here you would put animation track stop, so that the player, like they're done blocking. And then I'm going to set the what's it called? I'm going to set the sword status variable back to idle, because idle means they're not currently blocking. I'm going to set that back to idle when I get into the actual remote event function, or the on server event function, I should say. And I'm going to say else, right? And I'm gonna say character to damage, because this means they currently either are not blocking or they just generally aren't doing anything. So that humanoid, that health is less than equal to 10. You guys can change this damage value to whatever you want. Maybe you wanted to just instantly kill the player. You could say is equal to 0. Change it to whatever you want. Then I'm gonna play. I'm going to, well, I'm gonna stop the sword sound effect. So sword sound, stop, and then I'm going to play the hit, like the stabbing sound effect. We hit a player or stabbed a player. So, and just like that, we are done with that function. We can now move on to the remote event sword on event on server event function, right? Let me just close that out. All right, so press enter, and then here's where we have a lot, so just pay attention. So I'm gonna say sword event dot on server event connect function in parentheses, put plr, which is serve for the player, and then I'm gonna put attack type, right? And I'm gonna say enter. The first thing I'm going to do before I even create the player's character, or make a variable for the player's character, I should say, I'm going to check if they have the sword status variable, because if they don't, I'm going to create said variable, right? Because remember, this remote event is being fired for when a player tries to not only swing their sword, but when they also try to block and attack, or just generally block in general. So I'm gonna say if not player find first child sword status. Then if they don't, so pretty much if the script cannot find the sword status variable within the player, we're going to create it. So local sword status is equal to instance dot new, and then I'm going to make it a string value. You could also use a boolean if you wanted to. You can also use a boolean if you're just using it for blocking. You could just say, yeah, you could use like that. But I think this is better because some people's systems might have like attack, idle, blocking. So yeah. Then of course I'm going to parent it to the player. I'm going to say sword status dot name is equal to sword status, and by default the value will be set to idle, right? And just like that, we set the variable. We're good to go now. Now we can make a variable for the player's character. So local character is simply equal to player dot character, right? And then we're going to set up the if statements to handle the different attack types, or I probably say called it an event type since blocking isn't technically an attack. I'm going to say if attack type is equal to /1, then enter, right? And I'm going to trigger the animation handler function. So animation handler, I'm going to send over sword/1 event. I mean sword/1 anim. Wait, where's the animation? I'm so confused. Wait, what did I name it? Oh, I named it slash. Oh, that's why. So /1, I'm going to send over the /1 animation as well as send over the player's character so you can play the animation. I'm going to insert the player's name into the table because they're now able to freely attack any of the, I guess, any players, I guess. So players who can damage, then player dot name, or you could do character dot name, but it doesn't really matter. Then I'm going to skip 2 lines. I'm going to set up the function for if they make contact with the sword. So then I'm going to say character dot classic sword. Now I want to make this clear here. The reason why I'm putting classic sword is because that is the name of this sword. If your game has different names of swords, what I would recommend is what I would probably recommend doing is sending over the name of the sword, like on the remote event. Like go into the script and you would send over the name of the tool. So you would do script.parent.name, right? You would send over the name of the sword, and then you would go right here, and then you would have sword name, and then you would say character bracket sword name, right? Dot touched. That's what I would do it. Except if you have like multiple swords in your game. The only reason I can just do classic sword is because I only have one sword, for the video. So yeah, so character dot classic sword, and then I'm gonna reference the actual part that it can make contact with, which is the handle, right? Of course, you're not gonna say dot sword dot touch because that doesn't make sense. You can't touch a tool. You can touch a part, however. So dot handle dot touched connect function in parentheses. We're going to put hit, and we're going to say if hit dot parent find first child, we find a humanoid, right? Then, well, actually, first we need to make sure that they're also within the players who can damage table. So one, let's verify that they're a player, and then let's also look to see if they're within the players who can damage table. So players who can damage, and then player dot name, right? So if we can find them in the players dot name table, then we can press enter and proceed, and then on to the next thing. We can trigger the damage function. We can say damage, then hit that parent, and we can send over the enemy character. Then I can remove the player's name from the table so that they can no longer damage players. So let's do player who can damage, comma, table dot find players who can damage, player dot name, and boom. We're done with, well, that I should say. Then we'll go right here with the second end, and then we'll press enter. And then I'm going to say wait 0.8 seconds before we're doing a check. This is pretty much just a double check. Like if the player swung the sword but they didn't actually hit a player, then we need to make sure that their name is still removed from the table and stuff. Because regardless if you hit a player or not, you shouldn't be able to damage players unless you currently, are attacking. So I'm gonna say, so I'm gonna use an if statement, right? I'm gonna say, let me scroll down. I'm gonna say if table.find players who can damage, comma player dot name. Then I'm gonna remove the player's name. You can literally just copy and paste this. So Control C and wrong thing. Control V, right? And we can just remove the player's name if we find it. And then now we need to set up the /2, which, if you guys already couldn't guess, we can go ahead and just copy and paste. Let's press enter right here, and let's say else if attack type is equal to /2, then you guys can just paste this, Control C, Control V, just change this to /2 animation, and I believe that's all I had to, yeah, I believe that's all I really had to change with that. Yeah, it literally saves a whole bunch of time. But yeah, so just change that to /2 animation, then go right here for another else if statement. This time I'm going to do the blocking. So I'm gonna say else if attack type is equal to, oh, was it block or, yeah, it's block. I'm not sure if it's block or blocking. Oh, I forgot an equal sign. It's just 2 equal signs. Now I'm going to set the blocking function, right? So else attack block. Great news is this is very short. This is very short. Simply, you're going to say player dot sword status because we've created the variable if it didn't exist already. That value is equal to, is equal to marks blocking. The player is currently blocking. Then I'm going to trigger the animation handler function. And I'm going to say sword parry animation character, right? I'm going to trigger that function simply. So for the animation loader, go back right here, and yeah, pretty much gets to go there. Then the animation loader, I'm going to say wait for it, wait 1.9 seconds. Again, you guys can change this, but make sure you're changing all the wait time. Like, make sure you're adjusting your wait times because these all these wait times are honestly they're kind of connected with each other. So if you change one wait time, just double check and make sure that like the other wait times are all good and stuff in case you're seeing like delays or anything. So player dot sword status, that value, here's where I meant where we change it back to idle. All right, and boom, just like that, we are done. Like I said, I can't really test it because I mean I could start, actually no, I will test it for you guys. First, I just want to make sure that the sword itself works first. So if I hear that you guys hear the sound effects. Then if I right click, you guys see the blocking animation. Okay, so it seems good. Okay, so here's how you would test. Simply, you could just do test, start a server. I would do 2-player, but honestly, it's been glitched recently. I don't know why. It's been glitched to where like you press 2-player, it just loads the server with 1-player. So you might as well just do 1-player and then just type 1-player again. So I'm waiting for it to load right now. Yeah, there we go. Here's the first player. Once the first player is loaded, I will then add in a second player because obviously I can't test this by myself. So yeah. Okay, so now I will add in another player into the mix. It should just take a second. Then I'm gonna change their variable menu. Actually, if I could switch, I think I could switch back in time. I think. Okay, now we have 2 players. Great. Okay, so I guess I could try to do this. Like, I could just time this if I just time this correctly. Okay, so I'm going to block with this player, right? So if I do right click and then go here and then try to hit him. Oh, okay, I was a little bit off. All right, gotta go quick. Yeah, okay, there you go. You guys heard. Well, it was a little. The point is, it's a little off. Yeah, I thought honestly it'd be better if I do it like this. Let me do it like this to show you guys a better demonstration. I'm just gonna manually go change the variable because keep in mind this is what happens. This is what already happens. The only difference is it happens for 1.9 seconds. So I'm gonna change the status to blocking, right, for player 1, and then I'm gonna switch to player 2. This is player 2. Okay, so player 1 sword status. So this is what happens if I try to attack player 1. This is essentially what would happen if they're blocking. The only reason player 1 isn't like the blocking animation isn't playing is because I set the variable manually and stuff. Obviously in your game they have to right click for the blocking to be triggered. But yeah, so this is what happened. Boom. As you guys can see, he parried the attack. The animation played and made like a type of clanking sound like metal and stuff. But as you guys can see, he took no damage. So yeah, that's how you make a pairing system. Very simple. Then when you're done, just press clean up and then go back. And then just go back to here. I don't even know what this is. And then yeah, just close everything out. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you guys for all the love and support you guys have been showing. As always, if you want access to the models and scripts, you guys can become a channel member or become a Discord premium member and stuff. If you guys have questions about that, you can just ask in the comments and stuff. Links to my Roblox group and Discord can be found in the description and stuff. You guys should definitely join up. We're at 300 Discord members and almost 100 Roblox group members. Thank you for all the love and support you guys have been showing me. And yeah, we're on our way to 1,600 subscribers. Let's do it.